Okay, so Dad, what was your connection with the school at Aberfan, first of all?
Well, very little connection with the actual school. It was more the children of Aberfan, because I was minister of the Methodist Church, Zion Methodist Church in Aberfan, from 1963. I moved there from Cardiff. I had 3 churches, Merthyr Tydfil, Dowlais and Aberfan. But Aberfan was the special one because it had so many children there. It was an English-speaking chapel amongst Welsh-speaking chapels, and therefore it had a very good Sunday school, over 40 children. And I used to go there every Monday evening at 6 o'clock for Sunshine Corner, as we called it then, which was like an extension of Sunday school, where we sang choruses, we played games, I told them stories, and I showed film strips, and it was a happy hour that we used to have. So when people say to me, aren't you glad your children weren't in Aberfan school? I said, yes, but I was father in God to more than 50 children.
Yes.
I lost a lot of children. I regard it as my family.
Yes, yes. I think it's true to say you did go into the school, though, didn't you, to do a
I went into the senior school, not into the junior, strangely.
Okay.
I was never invited into the junior school, as I went into Pantglas Senior often to take a assembly, and I even went there in the June of that year, 1966, to record the school choir, so that I could take it around to the hospitals. But of course, after the disaster, that recording was put on hold, although I've still got it.
Yeah. Have you still got it?
Still got it, yeah. The choir of the senior school, singing songs and choruses, which was intended to be taken around hospitals.
So on the day that the tragedy happened, what was happening for you on that day?
Friday morning, I left home about 9:30 to go to Pontypridd. And I was going to the Church Village Hospital visiting afterwards, so I had my dog collar on. I left Merthyr Tydfil, proceeding down towards Pontypridd, and I would have had to pass Aberfan, the other side of the valley. The main road was on the left-hand side and Aberfan on the right-hand side. And so I would have passed through Merthyr Vale. As I passed along the road, several emergency vehicles passed, ambulance, police, waterboard. I didn't take much notice because that often happened if there was an accident at the colliery. And I passed through Merthyr Vale, and of course it was a very thick mist. I couldn't see across the valley. And something said to me, turn back. But I drove on. And it kept, turn back. And I couldn't escape this urge that I must turn back. I didn't know why. I got as far as Quaker's Yard, went into a lay-by, turned around and came back. And turned left down to Aberfan, of course. Then I knew what it was all about. Stopped by the police, but with my dog collar, I had to leave my car. I went through, and then I found this dreadful scene of disaster with people standing in the streets, looking like ghosts, wondering what on earth was happening. And of course, at that time, 9:30, just after 9:30, people didn't really know the depths of this tragedy. We thought that most of the children would be dug out, but we didn't know the nature of this slurry. It was mud, virtually, not everywhere.
So when you had to leave your car, you walked the rest of the way?
Yeah, about only a quarter of a mile. Down past the colliery and then into the...
And what scene greeted you?
Well, just people standing in my road, which was the road where the school was at the end of it. Just talking with fear on their faces, and wondering what was happening.
So what was the first thing that you did?
I stayed with the people, because I thought, well, there were plenty of people at the disaster scene. so many volunteers had come, firemen, policemen, all the colliery shift, and men from Hoovers, and so there were plenty of diggers falling over each other at the site. So I thought I must be with the people who were now suffering as a minister. So I stayed with them and talked with them, and then of course later visited their homes, and then as the day wore on, went into the mortuary with fathers to identify their children, and that was the worst part of it.
Can you explain to us how that mortuary was set up and where it was?
Well, the worst part of all was the people who were at the front line, those who had to dig these bodies out, and then the volunteers, nurses and St. John's Ambulance who had to clean them up in the vestry of Bethania Chapel. And then when they were cleaned up, they were laid out on the pews of the chapel under a blanket. And then, of course, one by one, fathers went in and went around lifting the blanket, And then when they found their own child, then that was the moment for tears.
And that was part of what you were doing. You were going around with the fathers.
Going around, as I knew quite a number of them, as fathers of the children in the Sunday school, and fathers I'd met at Hoovers, of course, where I was a visiting chaplain. Went in every Monday visiting.
This disaster happened first thing in the morning, didn't it? Just after 9.
Yeah, just after the children had gone into school and had their assembly and gone to their classes. And down came this avalanche of muck on the younger side of the school.
And so how long did this process of the digging and the identifying of the bodies, how long did all of that go on for?
But right through the night, through that first night, because it was the whole school, well, the whole left-hand side, the junior side, the younger side of the school, had collapsed on 3 classes, you see. And it was a lot of... And of course they had to dig so carefully. So it was a long job. And I was optimistic, not knowing the nature of this slurry, that many children would have been air pockets and they would have been dug out. But then as the night wore on, we realized there was little hope. Only a few children were dug out, safe, or injured, but safe.
Yes. And so, how were you keeping going right through the night?
I can only say by the grace of God. I just knew what I had to do and prayed hard and stayed with the people in their homes and then, of course, outside the mortuary right through the night.
And how long did this go on for you?
Well, until the next morning. By the middle of the night, most of the bodies had been brought in.
And then what did the next few days hold for you?
Well, the next few days, of course, was comforting the parents and preparing for the funeral, which was a communal funeral. There were a few private funerals, but most of the children were buried in the communal.
Now, obviously, you were there as a minister, and you were there trying to bring some comfort to the parents. How did you know what to say? I mean, how did the conversations go?
Well, mainly you listen to them. When people are bereaved and in shock, they like to talk about the person they've lost as though they're holding on to them. They need people to listen to them when they remember, when they recall. And of course we would try to affirm the faith we have in Jesus Christ and pray with them. And it was a great comfort. Although many of the parents, most of the parents didn't go to church in those days, they sent their children to Sunday school, sort of by proxy, faith by proxy. And I'm sure that these children used to go home go home and sing these choruses that we used to learn in Sunshine Corner. I'm sure they went home to sing them. I know they went home and told some of the stories.
Yes.
Billy Blackford stories.
Yeah. And did you find that the people that were caught up in this terrible disaster, did you find that they had strong feelings towards God in all of this, or what was happening for them in that? Were they blaming God?
No, that's it. People said, why did God allow this? And they didn't ask that. It was, as far as they were concerned, it was the colliery.
Okay.
They had put the muck up there, the refuse from the colliery waste. And there have been plenty of warnings, and when people say, why didn't God stop it? I have to say there were plenty of warnings. And it's like the prophets of old. Poor Jeremiah, he warned the people enough before they went into exile, but they wouldn't listen to him. There were plenty of warnings.
So you were visiting the families as a minister, and who else was on the scene that was?
Oh, because there were other clergy. There was Sandy Lloyd, the congregational minister. I'm trying to think the Welsh word.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and one word, I think. And then there was a Baptist minister, like Ken Hayes, who lost a child in the school. And Paris Owen, and the church in Wales, Wilfred Jones, and me, and I was the youngest one, you see, and that's why I'm
you were sort of mid-30s, weren't you?
35, thrown into the deep end. I mean, you can't prepare for a thing like this. And in a way, the main problem was the shock to your emotions. And it shook my faith, of course, but faith was firmly grounded.
It shook your faith at the time that it was happening, or later? How did that work?
Well, at the time, you said, how am I going to cope with this? But then you take a deep breath, and you've heard of our old prayers. You say, Lord, help me. And you just get on with the job. And other ministers came to help, of course. And we met together as clergy and prayed, and then we divided the people up into groups so that we weren't falling over each other. So each of us were given, say, 10 or 12 people to visit them. And we went around them and kept in touch with them.
And so you say it shook your faith. And can you tell us a bit more about that? What the process that you went through? Because you obviously haven't lost your faith.
Oh no,
so
as I said.
How did that work out?
It shook my faith just like any tree is shaken in the storm, but of course every tree has got its roots. It might get shaken, but it's firmly grounded. So, yes, it strengthened my faith, that matter, because you think about it and you pray about it, and of course you go back to the cross every time. If that could happen to Jesus, cruelly put to death on the cross by violent men, anything can happen in this world. God didn't stop it. Because we're free. And he's not going to take that freedom away from us. Otherwise we become machines instead of people.
So you were shooting up your arrow prayers. Did you ever feel like God said anything to you in the middle of all of that?
No, I just felt that I was carried along. And I remember the words in Psalm 91. He shall give his angels charge over thee. To keep thee in all your ways, they will bear you up.
And that's what you felt?
That's what I felt. I've been carried along. And that was really what strengthened my faith. I am being carried along. And you know the famous poem about footprints.
Yes.
In the sands of life.
Now, tell me if this is correct, but I heard that you actually went 3 days and 3 nights without any sleep.
Oh, no, it wasn't as bad as that.
Okay, what was the
No,
truth?
of course, I was there the first night and all the next day, and I would have stayed the next night, but some of my previous members from my church in Cardiff came up to help, and of course, to help me. And when they saw my state, they bundled me into my car and drove me back home and put me straight to bed.
And when they say they saw your state, what did they say?
Well, they could see that I was too tired to stay another night. And of course, you've got to know your limits, your physical limits.
Yes. So you allowed yourself to be taken home.
Yeah.
And how long did you sleep for?
Oh, I can't remember now. I'm sure I had a good long sleep. Then, of course, that would have been the Saturday night, because I was down again the next morning. We had a service at 11 o'clock at the chapel, Faith Recovery Service, we called it. We didn't sing any hymns because we couldn't sing, but we read the scripture, we prayed. It was only about 20 minutes.
So this was sort of like a last-minute decision to still have
that we would have a Sunday service.
But you would adapt it.
Yes, and then back we went to our duties, fortified by it. Because faith and worship builds up your inner strength. So we felt that we did need this time with God and recover. Faith recovery.
I mean, there must have been so many individual stories within that dreadful tragedy. Do any spring to mind of things that people did, or any kind of heroic situations that went on?
Well, of course, the heroes were the ones, as I said, who were at the front line. Those who had the agony of bringing these slurry-covered bodies out of the school, and then the others at the Bethania Chapel who had to clean them up. They're the ones who really had the hardest job. And I'm sure many of them, like me, were never able to talk about it all through 50 years. But I know I've got to talk about it now before I'm called home.
So, if I was to ask you, what would be your overriding, lasting memory of that dreadful day? Is there something that springs to mind?
I think my lasting memory is the communal funeral, when all these children were laid to rest in the cemetery. I remember as I approached Aberfan from the other side of the valley, from Merthyr Vale, who came down to. From Merthyr Vale, I could see across the valley to the other side, and there was a huge cross of flowers. I think they said it was about 100 feet long. And these flowers were on the mountainside above where the children would be laid. And I thought to myself, I'm going to cry. My children have been laid to rest under the cross. And that gave me great comfort.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So they were all buried on one day?
Oh, yes, all together. I don't quite know how many now, but probably 100, 112.
Now
Salvation Army Band was
Really? Tell us about that thing.
Oh, well, I mean, all the clergy were there. There was a long procession, naturally, and gathered around the grave. There weren't many dry eyes. The Salvation Army Band played appropriate. I thought they played one that I used to sing in Sunday school. When he cometh to make up his jewels, precious jewels, his loved and his own. Like the stars of the morning, the white clouds adorning, they shall shine in their beauty, bright gems on his crown. Something like that. Anyway,
right. Gosh,
remember that one?
That was one that they played.
That was one, but there were a couple of others I've forgotten now. I could find out if I looked up my books.
And what minister led that funeral?
Oh, the senior minister, Stanley Lloyd. Yes, Welsh minister. Yes, he led it with a very shaky voice, I can tell you.
And presumably the surviving children were at that funeral, were
I don't think many children. I think the parents kept the children away. Mm.
Yeah. And so when all of that had passed, obviously you were still the minister there in that village, and you've got surviving children. What were your thoughts about that? What did you do?
Well, we knew we had to carry on as normal as possible. Certainly at the chapel, we carried on with Sunday school, we carried on with Sunshine Corner, and I started up a Saturday morning cinema club for the children, and I visited the ones who were injured and in hospital, and we kept them in touch with the Sunshine Corner, with the tape recorder we had. And I've still got those recordings of the children in the hospital singing.
And you sang me a song earlier.
Oh, yeah.
One of the songs that
Way Far Beyond Jordan.
Yeah, that you sang regularly with the children.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to give
almost
us a
theme
rendition.
song after the disaster as a comfort song. It was away far beyond Jordan, we'll meet in that land, oh won't it be grand, away far beyond Jordan, we'll meet in that beautiful land, if you get there before I do, look out for me, for I'm coming too, away far beyond Jordan, we'll meet in that beautiful land. That's grand.
That's absolutely
They used to
brilliant.
sing it with gusto.
Gosh,
It was a traditional Cliff College chorus. I didn't make it up, but it was very appropriate.
But it fitted.
Very appropriate, that's right. I think it brought comfort to the
And it's
children.
so fitted with that Billy Blackbird story that you wrote at that time.
Yes, I wrote a Billy Blackbird story about Tommy Thrush, who had an accident in the forest and had to go to the land of sunshine, and Billy was very upset about it.
Yes, yes, yes.